Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And this is episode 90 of The Big Show.
90.
We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Ace Comic-Con. Now, we did a live stream, but now that we've had some more time with it and we've talked to some people and some vendors and stuff like that, we're going to give our opinions, our thoughts, and stuff like that. Our review of a con. Because that's what we do. But first, we ask you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, share with all of your friends, sign up for our Patreon because all the Patreon stuff that we're gonna do, we're looking to get better equipment and web hosting and all that kind of stuff. So
and we have patrons.
We have patrons, and we have a movie. So at the $5 level, you can tell us every 6 months what movie you want us to watch, and we'll review it within that month. And we already have our movie for this month.
Thanks.
Our patron number one is David Clemente, who we've known for a very, very long time. And you must be high to watch that movie. Anyways, if you're a patron, you get to know what it is and see what it is. So let's get into what ends up being really what we're going to talk about, the stuff that happened all of this weekend.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend.
It was our, I called it our Adventure Time weekend.
Yes, it started Friday afternoon, evening, and went through Sunday evening.
Yeah. I realized today that I just need a day where I'm sitting on the couch to catch up.
3-day weekend, yay.
Yeah, we got a 3-day weekend coming. And we could do our Patreon movie and all of our other stuff. So, our first thing that we're going to talk about is we went and saw The Upside.
Yep.
With Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston and Nicole Kidman. Now, it came out the second full week in January.
Okay.
And that's always kind of that, I don't know how it's going to be kind of time period for movies. That's kind of when they hide movies.
Yeah. January was where movies went to die, but then with Split and did Get Out come out in January?
I think
was
it was
that
February.
March? Was it February?
I think it was February, yeah. So, but so we had questions about this, but it had Bryan Cranston, who we like a lot, and Nicole Kidman. And although I like Kevin Hart, his comedy doesn't really sit with me always. And
yeah, I mean he's funny, but sometimes kind of does the same shtick.
Yeah. But we've seen a bunch of trailers for this, and so we were interested, and we went and saw it. And spoilers, it's super awesome.
Is that a spoiler? I don't know. Spoiler. It's a good movie.
It is. It's a very sweet, fun, tearjerker at times kind of movie.
Yeah, but not like The Notebook.
Yeah.
You don't feel like when you you just felt like you had a good time. There was, some heart and some laughs and some lessons, I guess.
I may have said in our Stardust review that I actually didn't want the movie to end. I wanted another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just... The movie is about a paraplegic who's looking for a new caregiver, and the caregiver ends up being Kevin Hart, who just kind of goes to this interview looking for essentially a signature for his parole officer so he could actually, not go back on into jail. And stuff.
Yeah. He's got to get his signature, so he proves he's looking for work.
And he goes in, and he's kind of the worst choice possible because of reasons. I don't want to get into the reasons, but it ends up being the best decision too, because he doesn't have this preconceived notion of I have to do all this, take care of you, and I'm your hands and feet.
Yeah.
And he's more just ends up being a friend to Bryan Cranston.
And you see a lot of that in the trailers, right? When he's just sign the paper, something wrong with your hands, and then he says, your mouth works, or, whatever. They're going back and forth about the fact that he can't walk and talk, and they kind of go in depth about it too. If you've ever had burning questions about how paraplegics do stuff, they kind of get into it.
They get into it, and they get, I won't say graphic, but detailed.
Yeah.
On stuff.
Yeah.
Like
there's one, right, and there's some other stuff that they don't go into graphic detail, but you get the point.
Yeah, it's actually pretty impressive on how they handle it. Now, some people complain that they didn't actually have a real paraplegic play the character, but it's I think the performance would have suffered for.
Right, I can appreciate the sentiment, but
yeah.
There's no one out there. There aren't, as far as I know, there aren't any paraplegic actors,
working actors. There was one by Christopher Reeves. He was an actor as a paraplegic, but he passed away several years ago.
Yeah,
so
back in the 90s. So.
Kevin Hart, though, for me, was the big surprise in this movie because as we discussed, his comedy can be kind of repetitive, and he kind of just does the Kevin Hart-ness thing.
Yeah.
And but they start the movie with him kind of doing that, but then he really handles the dramatic parts really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Like, I was quite surprised. And they leaned into him being the funny guy at times throughout the movie, but he really handled the dramatic stuff and having to deal with the heavy shit.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's got to be a little funny because it's pretty heavy subject matter otherwise. Yeah. So, the comedy parts were appreciated and kind of brought some levity to the story, to the situation. But yeah, they talk about it in the trailers, he's got a kid and he's just trying to take care of his kid. So.
And Nicole Kidman is really kind of fun as the straight, like the super straight of every. Yes. She's the ultimate straight for Brian and Kevin's characters and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Overall, pretty fun.
Yep.
Score?
3.75.
That's I'm gonna be 3.76 just to be different.
I'm gonna put it down as 3.75.
Okay, 3.75
for the end of the year.
But for a movie that came out in January, we were quite surprised with what we got, and so I'm super happy.
Yep.
It came out this morning from Variety, but then confirmed about an hour and a half ago by Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise that we are getting two Mission Impossible movies. One in the summer of 2021 and the second in the summer of 2022.
Right.
And McQuarrie is on to direct and write like he did the last two.
And they're going to film them back to back. So one and then the next one. And then
like the Avengers just did with Infinity War and Endgame. So.
And I wonder if this is Tom Cruise's swan song for the Mission Impossible series, because he's 51,
something 52? Like that.
So by then he's gonna be
mid 55. Yeah
So I don't know how many more. I could see them doing some build up big bad cliffhanger ending to the first one, and then maybe even bringing in somebody else if that's what they've
kind of tried to do that with Rebecca Ferguson. They always kind of it kind of seems like they're kind of moving that way from the British MI5.
Yeah,
they kind of try to do it with Jeremy Renner. It'd be cool if Jeremy Renner's in the next one. He couldn't be in this one because they were filming all the Avengers stuff, so he couldn't be in this one. That's how we got Henry Cavill. Then they had the Henry Cavill stuff happen or whatever. But it
Mustache Gate.
The Mustache Gate. But the fact that they have at least a plan for two movies.
Yeah.
And McQuarrie is actually doing Top Gun Maverick, which is why they're not going to do it for 2020.
Right.
That's when Maverick's supposed to come out.
Yep.
And so I think it's really interesting that they're doing two more. They're like they're ready to go. Like it sounds like they at least have an idea. McQuarrie needs to write the scripts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
well, it's interesting because now they've kind of in a industry where you don't necessarily always know where your next project's going to be, or if your next project's going to be.
Right.
The two of them, at least, have got stuff lined up over the next 3-4 years.
They work really well together.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. And I'm way okay with the two of them doing stuff together. Yep. So, I can't wait. So one of the things I'm going to just mention here, because I'm going to drop it at the end of this episode, is late last night, it was like 8 o'clock for us, HBO just drops a random teaser trailer for Game of Thrones. They teased us with a little piece in there. Was that during the National Championship game? They did that collage video with all the stuff that's coming this year to HBO. Yeah. And there was a little scene in there when Daenerys is meeting Sansa with Jon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was like 3 or 4 seconds.
Super quick.
But they gave us this minute-long teaser trailer, and I did a trailer reaction. I will add it to the end of this video. I may have said something wrong in there. It's okay. It happens, so... I'm not. It's about the feather. It's not Ned that left it. It was the other one.
Oh, okay.
A couple people.
Cersei's husband.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
I get it. It was really late last night. I know the timing's off, so the edit's kind of weird, but it works. And so it was late. We had 2 full days, like we're gonna get into, and then this drops, and so it was like. But I want you all to watch it. So please do subscribe to the channel, Patreon. Okay, let's get into what our weekend was outside of going to see the Upside.
Right.
First, Saturday, we went to Ace Comic-Con at the Gila River Casinos Arena in Glendale. From our home to the site, it's about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
On a Saturday morning without traffic and stuff. Now, I applied for media passes on just a whim to see what happens, and we got them. And they were very accommodating to us. We were going to go, me and Josh from the Rebel Files, were going to go out on Friday because Sam Whitworth was going to be here. He was going to be teaching a D&D thing. It was the wrestling night. So we were going to go out. We were going to leave work early, go out. Well, the doors didn't open till 4. And then by that point in time, we started making decisions about, is it really worth driving across town? So instead of the 40-minute drive, now it's an hour and a half drive.
Right, because it's rush hour.
And so we decided to not go on Friday.
And Sam Whitworth canceled.
So I'm never going to be upset with people canceling, especially if they're getting jobs. So if Sam's getting jobs, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Right, but it's just no longer makes any sense to go.
So Janice and I went out on Saturday morning and got there really easy to get in. Normally I would, worry about getting in the door, but they were super awesome. The security guards were all happy to see everybody. Yep. Getting our passes were really easy. And then it's at a hockey arena. So I'm going to talk about that first. So all the cons that we've done have been at convention centers, at con centers.
Right.
And this is the second year they've done this kind of arena style of con.
Yes. And they do them at various places besides here, like New York and
Chicago, Midwest Chicago, and they did one, I think, in Seattle last year too, Northwest and stuff.
There's like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
Throughout the country.
And the way they had it set up at the Gila River Glendale Arena of Hockeyness, the bottom bowl where the hockey field, where the ice is, they had this giant curtain that split the arena in half. And one side was the panel area where they had all these big panels with these A-list stars who would come in. And then the other side was the signing part and the photo lines.
Right.
All down the floor.
Right. And apparently last year, instead of the autograph section, it was the vendors. But there was complaints that once the panels got going, that the noise was so loud that the vendors nobody could hear.
And you get in the opposite too for the panels. This was something I was thinking about later. the panels are getting disrupted by everybody who's on the floor.
The murmur, yeah.
And then the first floor is a circle. The arena is a circle, and so the first floor is got right by the front doors. It was full of artists, comic book artists, and artists. And then as you work your way around, there was vendors, and then you went to the third story, and there was a bunch of vendors on the third story, and then a couple of the cosplay groups. Heroes United was there, AZ TARDIS was there, AZ Bots was there, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We walked around when we first got there, the first floor, and just kind of got a lay of the land.
Yeah.
And the way they had some of the vendors set up really made it choke point heavy on the first floor specifically.
Mm-hmm. There's corners. It's kind of weird to say because it's an oval or whatever. But there's corners where there's pillars, and I'm sure that it's probably set up that way for crowd control during games or concerts.
Yeah.
To kind of force everybody down into a smaller, so if they had to chase somebody down or whatever, I don't know. But in some of those, they put some of their biggest vendors.
Yeah.
Like one of them, they had this giant T-shirt vendor in that section, and so it really was down to like one person each going through.
And it was, and that's not it. Anybody who stops and wants to look at the shirts and stuff.
You can't. And then people are, they're on this side, and then they're like, oh, I want to go over here, and there's traffic, and it was pretty.
The vendors on the second floor, we talked to several vendors on the second floor, spent a lot of time talking at the end of the day about how their con was. For the most part, the vendors on the second story didn't do as well as the vendors on the first story.
Yeah.
And what we kind of came to the decision of was there just wasn't enough signage to tell people that there was stuff going on the second floor. Okay, third floor, but the second level. And
we didn't know. The only reason we knew that they were up there was we were looking out at the arena part, and I happened to look up and saw that there was tables, booths, whatever, set up. You could see them through the windows, and I was like, oh, there's stuff going on up there too.
Yeah.
So we went, and it's not the easiest arena to find escalators. Like there's only like two banks of escalators, one on each side, I think. So you've kind of got to go with purpose to find them.
Yeah,
and then there's no sign at the bottom of the escalator telling you that there's stuff upstairs, and the suites are on the second floor. The first floor, the second floor is suites. The third floor is where they all were. Yeah. So I could imagine you get up there and you're like, oh, well, there's nothing up here, and you just go back downstairs, right?
Yeah.
There was no signage at all, or security or staff or anything telling you to keep going.
There was some that wasn't security at the second level where the suite level is, but there was security at the bottom of the escalator, and he was just kind of standing there talking to people.
They weren't telling people, oh, there's more stuff upstairs. There was nothing to tell you that there was more stuff upstairs.
The vendors that we talked to, though, were very disappointed in the attendance. Now, the previous year, they said about 10,000 people came for the con, which is pretty good for that weekend. And they did Saturday, Sunday, Monday last year, and Monday was a really light day. And they also did all the photo ops on that third level, so people were forced to kind of go to that level for the photo ops.
Yeah.
This time they were all down in the bottom of the bowl, and so very few people really knew what was going on. Now, there was a lot of really good vendors.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed. Outside of just the artists and stuff like that were there, they brought in some pretty good. Neil Adams was there. Mark Kistler was there from Imagination Station. We actually spent quite a bit of time talking to him.
There was a whole tattoo station set up with like 6 chairs, tattoo chairs.
And it just, the overall feel felt very disconnected from itself.
Mm-hmm.
There was like one vendor who was kind of by himself who had all these great old toys.
Yeah.
And we talked to him for like 25 minutes at the end of the day on Saturday, and it was really sad because he had all this great stuff, and he came up from San Diego, and he's like, it wasn't even. It's not even worth the trip for me at this point in time.
Yeah, and he was talking about how so he was kind of in the curve, right? And so in a normal convention floor, you've got booth, 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 and then booth, 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 right?
Yeah.
So people just kind of go, like this down the aisle,
work their way
or
from one booth to the next to the next.
yeah, or you're walking down the middle and you're kind of looking both ways to see where you want to go. But especially where he was, it was kind of one here. There's like a big gap between the one that's on that side, big gap, and then him, and then big gap, and then somebody over here. And so, you don't go booth to booth to booth. You kind of just walk down the middle,
meander around and stuff.
Yeah.
Guest wise, they had several big guests come in. Now they had some wrestling, some of the wrestling WWE girls come in on Friday, which was really cool. But I haven't been to wrestling for a while, so I'm good or bad. I have no opinion there.
Right.
For Saturday, they had the Dark Phoenix cast, so it was Michael Fassbender, Ty Sheridan, and Alexandra Shipp.
Yep.
Alexandra's from Phoenix, so it was kind of cool. Ty is a very nice person, but he admittedly is a homebody and is kind of shy. Shy's not very low key.
Yeah.
And Michael Fassbender is, I'm sorry, a A-list guy. He shouldn't be doing cons, but he's also very kind of even keeled and low key and stuff. So their panel was okay at best.
Yeah, definitely not the best panel that we've been to. Alexandra, kept trying to kind of pick it up, but yeah, it was very.
And then once they started doing the fan questions, there's such an echo inside the arena that they were so far away from where the actual guests were. The guests were having a hard time understanding and hearing the questions.
Yeah.
And so it was like one of those that just fan questions are hard enough as it is, but then you get them and it's echoey and so we laughed. And in that whole bowl, in that whole half a bowl, maybe 1,000 to 1,200 people were in that section for the big Saturday panel.
Yeah.
Which was the Dark Phoenix panel. And there was no questions. I mean, I don't know how they talked very limitedly with the moderator about the movie coming up, but like everybody else started asking questions about Ready Player One or Magneto or like Storm.
And it was kind of weird because the girl, and I don't remember what her name is, the girl who's playing Phoenix.
It's Sansa.
I know who she is. I don't know what her real name is. She wasn't there.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. Like it's all the secondary characters. Yeah, and they like somebody.
Not that Cyclops and Storm and Magneto are secondary characters, but the movie's about.
But to this movie, they are.
In this movie, yeah.
And people were asking like Michael Fassbender about a Magneto standalone movie. And then, but most of it was, Ready Player One and other Michael Fassbender stuff. So
it was just again, odd feel to it. The second panel we went to was the Jessica Jones panel, which also had kind of a weird feel to it because we all know what's coming with the Netflix Marvel Universe. But it was with David Tennant and Kirsten Ritter.
Right.
And they were awesome. They were animated. They were super happy to be there. And
David Tennant cannot sit still.
He was up running around and telling stories. And Kirsten is super nice. Like she was super excited to be there and was happy to see everybody. And all the photos we saw from them, their panel was really good. But as soon as they got in the again, I'm looking through the crowd. There's maybe 700 or 800 people in the crowd, which is kind of deceptive because they have a whole big sections of that part of the bowl like blocked off. So they're forcing everybody to be in the middle. Yeah. And then they were telling people, come down to the VIP section right before the panel starts.
Right. They were telling people to fill in the VIP section because it wasn't even full.
Right. So I would have been pissed if I had paid for a VIP pass and now I'm sitting next to somebody who paid for a Saturday pass or whatever.
Right, and they just walked on.
Yeah, and so their panel was really good, but again, once the fan questions started, it was hard for them to hear and stuff, and so we kind of ditched out. Charlie Cox had a panel. At the end of the day, it was like 4:30. I think there was maybe 200 or 300 people in the bowl itself, and maybe a few thousand people. Like, we were able to like walk hand in hand like across the aisle and not have to come across anybody. And there was probably still another 2 hours in the con. The issues outside of, the arena was a weird feel and, the not proper signage. But I think my biggest thing with it is if you're not on a panel in the main floor, there's nothing to do other than to go look at the vendors. And once you've gone through the vendors,
there's nothing to do. We sat around in the bowl area probably more time than walking around because we walked twice, 3 times through everything.
Yeah.
And still had hour and a half of time, like an hour where we're just sitting there waiting for the next panel
and
to
that's
start.
Us taking photos and talking to vendors and doing like specific shopping, like spending time in each booth looking through everything they had and stuff. And the feel was weird. If I had spent the money to go, I'd be really, really pissed off.
Yeah, and we talked about that too because the con itself, if you buy the 3-day passes, is
125, I think.
125 for 3 days. Well, the first day is only 4 to, I don't know how late they were open, 10?
I think it was 8, 4 to 8 or
4
something.
4 to 8, so, and you've got to drive all the way across town in traffic unless you happen to live on the west side of town or you came from out of town and stayed at a hotel or something
there,
on that side. And, Saturday, the gates don't even open until 10.
Yeah, and went
by
till
6.
Yeah,
it's pretty much over.
Yeah,
and then
it was the same thing on Sunday. It was the gates open at 10. I think they were done at 5 or whatever.
Yeah, and they only had 2 big name panels on Sunday.
Tom
right?
Hiddleston and Taron Egerton. Although Todd McFarlane did show up and talk about his relationship with Stan Lee. And Mark Kistler, I'll get it, was a invited guest to the con, and he used to do Imagination Station, and so he did an actual. They had several different artists who were there, but they did like panels to show how to draw and how to paint and stuff.
But all of his stuff was in the kid zone right behind his booth. When I looked at the schedule, all of none of his stuff was out on the floor. They did have some smaller how-to kind of things, panels in between the big panels. They had this guy who carved
crayon
sculptures, I guess, out of crayons. We watched him make Yoda out of a crayon. Stuff like that in between. But it was just like, there's not the Phoenix Comic-Con, if there's not a big panel that you want to go to or you can't get into the big panel, that's going on right then and there are 50 other panels going on and then just a ton of stuff on the floor. Like, we'll go for the whole weekend and not make it through the entire floor.
We went last year and it took us 2 full days to actually make it through the bottom floor, not including the 3rd floor where all the reenactors and cosplayers and stuff like that were.
Yeah.
And so I'm not.
And the cost of that con, the Phoenix Fan Fusion, whatever, right now is like half.
It's $65 right now for 4 days, and you get like almost 400 panels. Or at least it feels like 400 panels. If you had bought them before, I think it was January 1 or December 15th or whatever, they were $55. And so, like, we're going to go. We're waiting for announcements for Phoenix to announce tomorrow. They start their guest announcements, and that's a big draw for us. Is the big name, known actors, that kind of thing is the big draw for us. Now, last year we did do some of the writer panels, which ended up being
really cool.
A lot of fun and stuff like that. And some of the smaller panels last year we got to go to too. But I think if you're going to spend that kind of money on a con and be there for 3 days, I need to have more than just the one thing going on at a time.
Yeah.
And because I'm excited about Dark Phoenix, but I don't want to hear fans asking questions to the guests. I want to hear a good moderator. They showed Grant Gustin
and Kevin
Smith from Chicago last year, and that panel was 9,000 times better than anything else that we got.
Yeah.
And it was a year old, and I'd already seen it.
Yeah.
And
it was filler because David Tennant was in the signing stuff and got held up. So they had to vamp for a little bit.
Yeah. But that was way better than anything else.
Yeah.
I had more fun watching that in the arena and having Kevin Smith dropping the F-bomb, and I'm like looking around to see if there's anybody bitching. And I'm like, oh, no, they're not. Okay, cool. But overall, I don't know if it's worth the money unless they do some significant improvements or change the location. And they're not going to do a big comic convention in January at the convention center in Phoenix here. It's just going to cost too much. There's too much stuff going on.
Yeah, well, football and, I mean, the fact that they even get the hockey arena, we're in the middle of hockey season.
The two things you're paying for the most in this is the hockey arena and the big name guest stars. And it's $125 for 3 days, and then you've got to pay, what was it, $250 for Hiddleston for a signature and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And or you could do this big monster package. So you got passes,
$400 for VIP passes, so you got to sit on the floor, which people got to do for free.
Yeah.
Autograph and a picture, a photo op.
Yeah.
For like $400.
I think I think Tennant with the TARDIS, and he was wearing a Nike TARDIS shirt. It was a Nike swoosh with a TARDIS.
Swoosh, yeah.
It was awesome. But a picture with David Tennant in the TARDIS was like $250 or $200.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to have that, unless he's in the costume, it's David Tennant in a T-shirt staying in the TARDIS, which is cool. And then the coolest part of the con, I think, for us was the AZ TARDIS showed up with the freight elevator, and we're building the TARDIS in front of us. That was pretty cool. Other than meeting Mark, and then we ran into Mo from our local radio station.
Yeah.
I ran into her again. So my plan is to, every time we go to a con and I see her, I'm taking a selfie with her because she's like Mutt and Jeff with me. The other thing that we did this weekend, and normally this is not something we would talk about, but there was enough stuff going on there that I thought was worth the conversation of our con movie week, show stuff. We went to BARRETT JACKSON on Sunday. BARRETT JACKSON is a gigantic car show and auction. Actually, it's more of a car auction than it is a car show, but you pay. It starts on yesterday on Saturday, and it goes all the way through the following Sunday.
Right.
So it's 8 or 9 straight days.
Right.
And they started the car auction today, but the last 2 days have been their preview family days. And so for $25 at the door, you get access to everything that you would get get to if you'd just gone on next weekend when it was $75 or $80 or whatever.
Yep.
And you can't bid on cars. You have to get pre-approved and everything for
get a bidder's pass.
to get a bidder's pass and everything.
Although there were people with bidder's passes there yesterday,
that were walking around,
looking at stuff.
They're doing their homework, doing their due diligence and stuff. But all the vendors are open, and all the RV vendors are open, which is a big deal for us because we're looking for an RV. And there's all the cars, but there's also like jewelry and clothes and furniture and artwork and sunglasses and bicycles and motorbikes. And then there's a car show. There's the ride and drive thing going on with Dodge. So you go.
And they had some BMX racers going on.
Yeah.
They did the drifting show thing.
The main tent that everything is in, from where you come in the door to all the way to the other end is 3/4 of a mile. And that's a third of the event, a quarter of the event.
Yeah.
And then you go outside.
We kept walking, and we're like, this tent goes on forever. The tent goes on so far that there's a smaller auxiliary tent off the back with 3 more aisles of cars.
Right. And we actually, before we really got into the YouTube space and doing cons and all that stuff, we would go to car shows, and Barrett Jackson was always our thing. We'd always call in sick on a Friday of Barrett Jackson. We would go down. It's 25 minutes from our house. It's 5 minutes from her work.
Traffic
in North Scottsdale at Westworld, and we would go down and spend Friday at Barrett Jackson. That's when all the stars were there. I've met Bill Goldberg there and Luis Gonzalez, and we've seen Sammy Hagar and
Ron. No, what's his name? The car guy, the car designer guy that got on the bus with us.
Oh, Chip Foose. I met Chip Foose. Way awesome guy. He just gets on the bus. He's standing there with 2 drinks and stuff.
There wasn't room for him to sit, and the shuttle kept waiting, and everybody's kind of like, why are we waiting? And his staff comes running and jumps on, and they're like, wait for Chip, and none of us are paying attention. Whatever, can we go? And finally he gets on, and there's no place for him to sit, and he's just standing there, and people are like, Chip, let me sit here. And he's like, no, I'm just a guy, I'm on a shuttle, and everybody's kind of joking around, and who you got to be around here, Chip Foose, to get a seat. And then they pull up, and he walked up, and he's like, can I get a picture? He's like, sure. And so we got a picture with him.
Yeah, it was so, the event itself is so, it's all car people.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. It's very laid back and very chill, especially this weekend where it's a lot of families and stuff like that. After spending the day at a con where people understand to stop when people are taking photos, and then going yesterday.
Nobody stopped.
Nobody
would
would
just walk
stop.
right in front of you.
It got a little annoying. But the cool thing about it this year is part of the things that, cars that they're selling and stuff like that. They had a recreation of the Pacer from Wayne's World. Actually, we were just watching before we came in here, and it sold for like $6,500 or whatever. Yeah. It looks like the Pacer is just missing the red vine dispenser from the top.
It says Schwing on the license plate.
Yeah, for $6,500. It's a Pacer. Why not? They had a Mystery Machine that was all Scooby-Dooed out, which was really cool.
It was nice.
But the big thing they have this year, at least movie-wise, or con-wise, or TV-wise, however you want to look at it, is the last 4 Transformer movies. The Camaro that is Bumblebee, they have the actual cars that were the hero cars from the last 4 movies.
Yep. And they're 4 individual. They aren't all the same car.
Yeah,
each one's a newer.
Each one's a newer version of it.
Yeah.
I know the very first Camaro they used in the very first one was the prototype.
Right.
And so they had to be super, super careful with it and stuff. And the GM people were on site, so if anything did break, they were there to fix it.
Yeah.
But as they went along, they got more of the hero cars and stuff like that. But these were the specific hero cars that were built by GM for the movies, and they're being sold. And there was a giant Bumblebee statue in between the cars. It was actually
half size.
Maybe half size.
Of the real Bumblebee, because he was maybe 8-9 feet tall.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But it was cool to see them all sitting together.
Yeah.
And having all that stuff.
It was kind of interesting. Usually there's more movie cars. There's usually a couple of Fast and Furious cars, or a Gone in 60 Seconds car.
There was one Eleanor.
But it
that
was
from the Eleanor factory, I think.
It was
a tribute or whatever.
A tribute. Yeah, it wasn't real. They had that one that went up right before or right after the Schwing car.
Yeah.
That was in the
Hangover?
It was in the Hangover. It was in the wedding scene. The only car I remember from the wedding scene is was it a Mercedes?
The Mercedes, yeah.
It's all trashed. I don't remember any
whatever.
other cars. And then it was in something else too. But if it's going on Monday, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not anything. But
cars in the past on Friday or Saturday will go for $500,000 to $3 or $4 million and stuff like that. But it's a cool. Like the first couple of days, it's like I said, cars were going for $6,500 and $1,000.
You can go buy your kid a car, or spend $2 or $3 million.
And it's everything. It's like I said, there was a Pinto and a Pacer, and then there's like super custom rat rods and
fire trucks and
fire trucks,
cars,
and there was
and
what was that one that I kept saying it was a Jaguar? It was next to the Rolls, the 38 Rolls, like a 39 Fiat. No, that's not what it was. Chrysler. I don't know. Big, gigantic.
Greyhound.
It was a Greyhound, but what was the car?
Oh, I thought that's what it was.
I
was a
think it was
Greyhound.
I don't know. It was a.
It had a Greyhound on the hood on
Yeah.
it.
And just like if you are into anything about cars, there's a version of a car there.
Yeah.
I think there's like 1,400 cars this year. But we love going because we can walk around, we can look at all the cars, there's food vendors, we can spend the day there. There's
It's usually nice outside.
usually nice in November, or what month is this? February.
January,
March, June.
It's not nice in June.
No. And there's also all these other vendors we get to do the RVs things and people watch and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. If you ever have a chance to be in Phoenix, definitely go to Barrett Jackson in January every year. They have one in Vegas and they have one in
Palm
Springs in April.
And then Mohegan Sun.
And that's like summertime, something like that.
The one in Vegas is September.
Yeah. We're talking about doing September, maybe. We'll have fun. So our weekend was cool cars, okay Comic-Con, really good movie. You can't go wrong. I can't complain. Not too much.
No.
Somebody needs to buy my house. So, what did you guys think? Are you excited about the new Mission Impossible back-to-back movies? Have you watched The Crypts of Winterfell? Did you go to Ace Comic-Con? If you went to Ace Comic-Con, please let us know what you thought about it. And please go to Barrett Jackson and support those guys. And everything else that we talked about, let us know. Leave us a comment. Like this video. I've already asked you to subscribe twice. I'm going to ask you to subscribe again because I can't say that word anymore.
Subscribe.
And sign up for our Patreon. All the information for that stuff is in the description below. It's really easy, and our social media stuff. And until next time, good night, cult members.